So we're going to take a look here at Prep Test 87, Section 1, and questions 1 through 5. So again, you should be open to Law Hub and on Prep Test 87, Section 1, questions 1 through 5. And what do we have here? We have participants in the experiment, and going to evaluate the impact of expert testimony. You're going to be 6 groups, and they're going to be J, L, M, N, P, T. Okay. And what about these 6 groups? They will evaluate separately, one after the other, in accordance with the following conditions. So it's a order-driven hypothetical. And again, I want you to experiment with how you're going to represent information. So I'm going to represent the constraints at the bottom of the screen just as an alternative to typically I would represent them at the top of the screen. And what you want to do is just get very comfortable with whatever procedure, whatever design, if you will, that you're going to bring with you on test day. So the first condition here is teachers must be evaluated sometime before both M and N. So that's straightforward, right? So it's going to be T coming before M and N. Okay, here's my T, my M, and my N. M must be evaluated before L. So we're going to combine those. We don't need to do that right now because you may want to answer the orientation question. It may be easier to answer the orientation question with them separate if the orientation question is there. Third one, N must be evaluated immediately before, immediately after P. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. So here we've seen this lots of times. I'm going to put my arc. Okay, that means they can be reversed. Underline the P, underline the N. And finally, the off police must be evaluated sometime between the J and the L, regardless of the order. So again, this constraint we've seen multiple times. J, L, P, LJ. It's just simply nothing new here. I mean, it's just like, okay, I've seen all this before. So P, L, J, everything's constricted. So again, here's that choice, where if you just want to answer the orientation question, have at it. If you want to hold off on that and build the law, do it that way. I'll answer the orientation question because we're here. So I'm just looking, to see where they violated these constraints. T has to come before M and M. So I look at A and that looks okay. I look at B, again, T looks fine there. C does not look fine, right? So C's out. D obviously is fine and E is fine. Now I have M coming before L. So, okay, go back up to A and I'm fine on M and L. B, I'm fine on M and L. Come down here to D and I'm not fine on M and L. Okay. So, and E, I'm fine on M and L. Okay. So what else do I have here? I've got N and P have to be consec, and I'm not getting that in A, so A's out. N and P are fine on B, and N and P are fine on E. And finally, I have to have P in between J and L. So I go back up to B, and I do not have P in between L and J. I just want to check E just to make sure I didn't overlook something in a hurry. So there I have P in between L and J. So the answer to question number 1 is E. Now you really get to work though. When you go to 2, I'm not looking at question number 2. I've got to build my law. So my law here is, let me take the 2 constraints that I can bring together, which are constraint number 1 and constraint number 2. And I'm just going to make this TML. And that's going to be, let me just erase this here and recreate here that this has to be TML. Now I'm going to erase this bracket I have here because the N is also now going to bring this one over, right? And this N and P need to be adjacent and reversible. And now I can just get rid of that. So, you know, what I have here is I can do this one of 2 ways. I can use this one hypothetical that I have right here, right? This one, and just manage this constraint over here. There's a second possibility. So it just depends on you. If you can manage this by looking at, like, you know, if it's going to be JPL, well, you see that there's no J in here, right? So you'd have to imagine to get JPL that you'd have a J coming, you know, here before the P. I don't have enough space on this thing to write it. So, you know, if I didn't have that, I'd have LPJ, in which case I'd have to rearrange this so that, so it's messy, you know. And one way to get around this is to bifurcate it and say, well, you know, if you want to manage it, that's fine. But if you want to bifurcate this, all you do is you take one universe, and this is going to be the JPL universe. Okay. And this is going to be the LPJ universe. And then you have a choice here. You can say, so I'm going to erase this because I have this, right? Now, again, you have a choice. You can simply bring up this piece here, right? And then work the constraints into it, or you can rewrite it. So I'm going to try to rewrite it. In other words, if you took this information that we have at the bottom and we made it JPL, then it would look something like this. It would look like, well, I start with T, and I maintain the relationships at the bottom. So I have T, M, NP, reversible, and M, L. Okay. And I can do that over here as well. Since I'm doing it, it's going to be T. And yes, this would take, it would take a short period of time. I mean, it's not, you know, you got to do it if you're going to proceed this way. The benefit of proceeding this way is how visual it will be if you are careful and you do it correctly. So that's where I would be. Now over here, if it's going to be JPL, I'm going to take the J down here and say, if this has got to be JPL, then J here has to come before the N and the P, and the N and the P have to come before L to comply with this constraint up here. And I can read that. I can, you know, in this hypothetical, L's got to be last. So if you can practice reading this, you're in business. Let me go over here now and do the, since I've bifurcated, do the second hypothetical here. And this one's going to be LPJ. So this works in reverse. This is what I'm going to do here is say, because now L has to be in front of the P and the N. So I already know that the T is in front of the N and the P. See, I already have the relationship. So if I do this and I say, okay, wait a minute, here, L has to be in front of the N and the P. So I can erase this relationship here because T is going to have to be in front of the N and the P. All right. You just practice this. And then I'm left with J. So here it would follow then that J would be here. So looking at these two, you know, this one here is very straightforward. This one is a little work to do, but I'm going to be able, I'm confident I'm going to be able to get all these right. So let's see what we have. If we go to question number 2, who could be 6 basically, right? Well, either, I'm going to turn to red here, you know, either L is 6 or J is 6, and that's it, you're done. And the only choice to have there is J. So the answer is A. And do you see how quickly you can answer this? This is organize, manage, and solve. It really is, that's straightforward. Let's try number 3 here. If the lawyers are evaluated sometime before the judges. Okay, so just take that information. If the lawyers are evaluated at some time before the judges, then we're over here, right? Because in this hypothetical, the judges come, the judges come before the lawyers, not after, right? So they sent us to the second hypothetical. All right, and what do you want to know? Then which one of the following could be true? So could be true is probably going to direct me here, right here, because everything else must be true. T must be 1, M must be 2, L must be 3, J must be 6. So let's see what they came up with. Could it be true that J is 3rd? No, J is 6th. Could it be true that M is 5th? No, M is 2nd. Could it be true that N is 3rd? No, L is 3rd. Could it be true that P are 4th? Yes. And then could it be true that T are 2nd? No, it's 1st. So the answer to number 3 is D. And again, I'm stressing the inverse relationship between the care with which you organize and manage and the speed with which you solve. Question number 4. If the police officers are 5th, you say, okay, well, if the police officers are 5th, it looks like I could be in either hypothetical. Like, if you see how it appears to be here, if I were to do this and say, okay, let me go here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they want P in 5. And then they're asking what must be true. Well, if I look over here and P is in 5, then L has to be in 6 and N has to be in 4. Now, those are statements here that must be true. If I go over here and P is 5, J must be 6 and N must be 4. And do you see how when you go to both hypotheticals, it doesn't have to be true that L is 6 because J could be 6. But when P is 5th in both hypotheticals, N is 4th. So if that's an answer choice that N is 4th, it's correct and you don't have any more work to do. So if it's not an answer choice, then there have to be 2 things that must be true. And I'll deal with that if that issue is raised. But here, if I'm C, N is 4th because it must be true. I'm just looking for N is 4th, and the answer is D, N is 4th. So again, the solving here is not taking very long at all. And I'll erase this. And I come here to question number 5. And what do I have? What's the minimum number of groups that must be evaluated after the teachers? So, okay, so we should be able to answer this. The minimum number of groups that are after the teachers, minimum number, right? So let's go to both hypotheticals. And here, Now, remember, we're not talking about the maximum, we're talking about the min. So here, it's 5, right? Because they all come after the teachers are first. But over here, it's not 5, it's 4, because either T or J could be first. So who's got to come after the teachers in this one are M, L, N, and P, and the answer is going to be 4, and that is B, and that's it. So again, I think what we'll establish through repetition is this is organize, manage, and solve. It's not logic games. It's not formal logic. It's organize, manage, solve. So that was questions 1 through 5, prep test 87.